Today we're going to do a review of the Austrian 1898 Rast Gosser pistol in 8mm Gosser, I guess is what the caliber is. So I'll get the camera switched around, zoom it in, and we'll take a look at the gun. And this is a reproduction holster that I have for it. Okay, real quickly about the holster. I bought this gun a while ago and I haven't done anything with it, but it's like one of the ones I have in my collections. I bought this holster for it. Whether it's correct or whatever, it's a reproduction holster and it's sold by World War II Supplies. Very nice. I think I paid less, about $50 for it. It's a really well done leather holster that the pistol fits in, kind of heavy duty, even has a stamp in there dated. So nice item. I like it, but that's where you can get them if you have one of these guns. Just a little quick thing on that. Okay, now here we have the pistol itself, and what this is this gun was adopted, like it says, 1898. The Austrians were looking for a firearm. And the weird thing about this gun is they had trials and they had a requisite or prerequisite or requirements of what they want. Okay, there's an earlier 1870 which is in a bit larger caliber. In 11.3 millimeter. So the Austrians, I guess, were looking for a new handgun, and their requirements were they were looking for penetration, something not so much the larger 11 millimeters, which are around 44s, 45 calibers in US terms. They were looking for a gun, and they set out a standard that it had to be of a small caliber, smokeless powder. Okay, this is also 1890s, is a smokeless powder era. They wanted a revolver. They operated with smokeless powder, lighter caliber, good penetration. Okay, and they were more worried about second shot placement and rapid fire than they were about the knockdown power of the cartridge itself. And then they required absolute reliability. Their reliability standards were high. The gun had to be reliable and function well under all conditions. And then also one other stipulation was it had to be safely carried at the ready. So this gun was designed in the 1890s, but it has a lot of features of older firearms. One thing about it, and that's kind of why when I explain the different features, why a gun made this late, almost 1900, would have odd features on it, like an ejector rod other than a swing out cylinder, which predominantly most revolvers were going to. And there are some features about this gun that are also pretty unique and advanced for its time. So here we'll take a look at it. And what this is this is kind of a modification of the standard type of pistol that a lot of countries used. The Gantz, and I believe the other design was the Schmidt-Galland type of design. And this had a way of operating. What you did is when you took down the loading gate backwards and then operated the trigger, what this did is this blocked the trigger and would revolve the cylinder and block the hammer. Now I have this, I believe, on my Swiss pistol, operates the same way. And then you would swing out this ejector rod, eject the case, and then pull the trigger, eject another case, and then to load, you would load around, pull the trigger, rotate the hammer, pull, rotate the cylinder, load another round. And then for their reliability, another thing this pistol has on it, if you look here, it's got a frame-mounted, free-floating firing pin in it, where most of the guns of the time would have the firing pin attached to the hammer itself. So this pistol, you could load it, and if you look closely, there's a gap where this hammer is not engaging. It's got what they call a rebounding hammer, which is an interesting feature on an early gun like this. Most of the military guns didn't have it. So you could open this revolver up, load the cylinder, close the loading gate, be back in its double action format, and it's at the ready and safe. Okay? If you thump this, I don't know if you can see the gap in there, but if you thump this hammer, it's not going to discharge the gun. So you can, let's zoom in, and I'll try to angle it to where you can see where that is not touching the firing pin. Okay, so it's at the ready, just what they wanted. As for the reliability, this design was used on several different European model military handguns of the time period, late 1800s, 1890s. So it proved itself reliable. And I believe the reason they retained this ejector rod thing was they did have some prototypes in the testing that had swing out cylinders. And part of the testing was to fire it, and after a period of time, like 600 or 800 rounds, they noticed that there was fouling building up underneath the swing out. When the cylinder swung out, the injector rod and the little fingers of the star, they were getting fouling built up underneath there, and it was kind of gumming up the gun. So they considered that a defect and removed the gun from the trials. Now this one fit the bill. And again, like in the military, they had this gun, they adopted it for those reasons at that time. Then within 10 or 15 years, they're changing their mind and they're going and adopting semi-automatic pistols for the military. Now there is another person that does a video about this gun. It gives the history of Rast Gasser Company and Gasser himself. Leopold Gasser ran a company and built firearms, but I guess he passed away and he left his foreman in charge with his underage son, ran the company, and then there was his brother was Gasser, and he was with this guy Rast. They were an engineer, and what he did is they formed a company where they made sewing machines. But they were engineers and good machinists, so they made small gun parts and got government contracts for making parts and pieces for the guns. So when they developed this gun, or the way this gun was made, which is confusing, if you look on earlier models, there's one thing that they did change. You can see it down here on the frame. This here says patented Rast and Gasser on it. This is a later gun because the early ones will just say Gasser. What happened is one of the original manufacturers, something went bankrupt, then the brother took over, got it, changed it, and whatever. So there's a whole intrigue and that about the gun. Also, you see here the serial number and that. There's an ML and there's an ML here. Well, what it was during the war, they ran out of one certain type of steel for the cylinders and the barrels. And so they, whatever the term was for the steel, it's abbreviated ML. That way you know they used a different steel, part of the manufacturing process. And this gun here, from the date stamp up here, the acceptance was accepted in 1917 into the Army. So that's about the period, and the serial numbers, that's when this gun was made, during the war itself. Now, like I said, it has, I can't pronounce the system, but this system that, where you put the loading gate back and then it blocks the trigger. This system was on several different pistols, and I know that one, I think it's the one Swiss model pistol that I have. The Swiss model 1882, very similar to this. Though this design does have features that are different. So that's how you'd load it, like I said. Rotate it, load it, unload it. You flip down the rod and eject the cartridges. Now if you go to this side of the gun and you would look, there is a, down here inside the trigger guard, there is like a serration or checkering down in the back of the trigger guard. So I believe you have to put the loading gate down like this, push it down, and then go back here, and with a little bit of pressure on the back of the trigger guard, you know, you put your finger and then pressure, and then that pops this out here. And then there is, on the edge, like stapling or checkering here. And then this will open the gun up to where you can see the action. And then this one grip comes off. You see the holes in the bottom of the grip are secured with these two prongs here. And then the other grip is held in place with a screw here. And that's your action right there. It's all pretty basic and simple. You can get at it, clean it. I believe the trigger guard will come off like that and exposes your action. There are a couple other pistols of this time period with a similar design. I believe the Russian Nagant, they all open up like this. So it's basically simplicity, ease of maintenance, and that way you can clean out dirt, debris. You know, the mechanism is fitted in there, but it's pretty basic. So nothing too complex. Automatic pistols at the time, they were in the trials, but automatic pistols, a lot of the early designs weren't perfected yet, and they were pretty fragile and broke and would break a lot. So that's why the reliability of this gun, one of the reasons why it was adopted this late in the game. Now, you get it back in there, just give it a squeeze, and it snaps back into place and you're in business. Now, to remove the cylinder, this is a later model gun. There's a little knob here, and what this is a spring-loaded pin. And you pull it down and it disengages. I'll show you the block or the dovetail on the base. Now this is pretty stiff in there, so to get it off, it actually goes on a lot easier. What I do is pull down on the knob. It's kind of hard for me to do. And then use this to kind of tap it off. Then once I get clear of the thing that locks it, the little tab, you can slide this out of there. And there is your, this is what locks it in. And if you can look, try to zoom in closer. Okay, that's the way it sits on the gun. And you see where that little knurled little tiny piece is? Well, you pull that down and it retracts the pin in there. As you can see? And then that is what goes on to this, on the barrel. That pin drops in there and locks this whole mechanism into the gun itself. But if you examine this over here in this area, you'll see there's a little, it's a spring of some sort that's in there. And when this goes back in, it kind of depresses that spring, and then somehow that spring holds this. That's why you had to tap it out. It kind of holds it in place. And then also, once you remove that, the cylinder just comes out of the frame. And that's what your frame in that looks like. Here's your loop for your ejector rod. And the Golland designed pistol, which is quite similar. It even has the looks of the Mosin Nagant and all those other guns. The frame looks kind of the same. So it's a modified version of a pistol. And also this is an 8-shot revolver, which was another interesting feature. The 8mm is basically like a 32 long. I'll discuss the cartridge more, but 8 shots, which kind of was standard with the automatic pistols, even though loading and reloading takes way longer. It still is on par with like an 8-round magazine, which was kind of standard with a lot of the early auto loaders. Okay, they didn't have 15, 20-round mags. All right, to reassemble it, basically just place the cylinder back down in here. And line it up. Slides in now. Again, pull down on the little lever, or a little, and I see it just slides right in there, nice, and then locks into that. Getting it in is a lot easier than taking it out, and that's because that spring, I guess, now it's pushing out and it gives it some tension. So it's a pretty ingenious design. A lot of features on this gun are a little bit ahead of its time, but a lot of them have this older style features like the ejection rod and that. And I think these guys heard how the tests were going and the swing out cylinders. They didn't submit that because the military wanted a more reliable gun. They did make a civilian version with a swing out cylinder. That was also mentioned in this other person's video. And this gun is a single double action. Shape of the grip is a little bit different. You know, kind of comes down in that. It does kind of fit in the hand a little bit different than a normal, you know, some other type of design pistols. And then people said about the operation of it, which if you use both hands, okay, your left hand, you know, you can load the gun, and then the ejection rod, you know, you would eject. Sorry, my shaking. So even for a right-handed man with a little bit of practice, this gun isn't that difficult to use than any other type of weapon designed like it. So that's my overview on it, kind of trying to do it. And the reason I got this gun is to fit a niche in my collection and also to add the ammunition to my lineup on what I do. And ammunition for this pistol, about once every 10 years, Fiocchi makes a run of all these obsolete calibers, and this is one of them. And I recently got some Fiocchi ammo. Now, the reloading dies, the correct ones, are only made by CH4D at the moment, and they're on back order, so I kind of shelved this waiting for the dies. You can probably make the cases. A lot of people shoot the 32 long in this gun, and it'll go off, it'll rupture the cases because something about the case is a little bit bigger. But that's the Fiocchi round there. You can make the case from I think 32 H&R mag. You can modify it. I'm not quite sure, but I have actual brass made to specs. So now I can get dimensions off of this and see how I can tweak in another case to make it, because this stuff here, when it comes in, it ended up costing me $40 a box for 50 rounds. And also I want to pull a bullet and get the bullet diameter. I'll slug the barrel, get the bullet diameter, and it's a 125 grain bullet. And I put the calipers on, this comes out to 315 in diameter, so it looks like custom bullet mold time. I looked around, I have to get this bullet out and measure it. I haven't found anybody selling. Fiocchi used to sell the components like the bullets and the brass. They don't anymore, because like for my Swiss, my 1882 Swiss, I bought some empty brass, I think 300 or 400 cases. You can make it out of 32 long, or 3220, one or the other, I can't remember. But I think Buffalo Arms charges you 99 cents per case for like the Swiss. I don't know if they, because this is so close to the 32, a lot of people just put 32 long in there, shoot it, and then when the cases rupture, throw them away. So that's going to be another thing, but we're going to be able to get out and shoot this gun. I have a stock of fresh ammo, hopefully. Thing about Fiocchi's, when I bought the 8mm French Revolver pistol ammo, I had it was like dud ammo. The bullets were getting stuck in the barrel, so I don't know. And it kind of pissed me off. I shot less than 100 rounds. And I think I have 100 or 150 rounds of it, but I got to pull it, work on it, look at the bullets. And this would be another project to go hand in hand with it. And maybe we'll review the Swiss pistol. But it's just something, it's kind of like the ammunition popped up, I grabbed it for it sold out. I'm waiting another 10 years. I ain't young. I can't wait another 10 years for another run of ammo or pay $80 a box. These people buy up 1,000 rounds and then hang on to it till it runs out. But interesting gun. We're going to have some fun with it. Maybe I'll dig out my others. I am working on several projects right now, and I have some other stuff going down here in the next few weeks. So we may not get to it, but I can't work out in the heat, so I figured I'd make a little video talking about this pistol. Interesting little gun. There are several videos that go in with 3D models, and will show you a lot more than I can about this gun. So, look them up. They'll fill in all the questions I forgot. But I think what I'll do is maybe once I dig them all out, I'll compare these with the Swiss, the Russian, the Gaunt, and all of them together. And then maybe go out to the range and shoot them all.